And now it's time for Reading is Magic. Our book today is Tano and Binti, which is a story about two chimpanzees who return to the wild, by Andy and Linda DeVoles. Most of this story takes place in a forest. A forest is a place where there are lots and lots of trees, like this one. Forest, F-O-R-E-S-T. This one's in the rainforest. This is an area that's endangered right now. A lot of the rainforest is being destroyed, so it's important to care for things in nature. Let's read about Tano and Binti. Tano and Binti. This is based on a true story, too. Tano and his younger sister Binti peered out of their crate in bewilderment. They had just arrived after a long journey from the London Zoo in the African forest that was to be their new home. They would need to learn many new skills to survive. Tano crept out of the crate, and touched into the dry leafy ground. He dug curiously into the soil, letting it fall through his fingers. Satisfying that it would not harm him, he began to scream excitedly. Imagine they've never really been into the real forest. They've always been in a zoo. There were strange, new sounds in the forest. Tano and Binti huddled together under a small bush. The midday sun was hot, and they soon drifted off to sleep. They were startled awake by the sound of rustling in the bushes. They looked up to see an older chimpanzee approaching them. This was Amber. Amber was a long-time resident of the forest. She held out her hand in friendship and made a soft panting sound that meant the young chimps shouldn't be frightened. Tano and Binti raced to Amber and hooted in her ear in greeting. Soon the three chimps were cuddling together. They spent the afternoon grooming one another until Tano became restless. He was hungry. Amber led the way to a fig tree and placed a fig in Tano's palm. He sniffed the fig cautiously at first. Then he slowly bit into the sweet, ripe fruit. When he grunted enthusiastically, Binti joined them. All three chimps feasted until they were full. See the fig? Amber decided to take a nap, but Tano and Binti were full of energy, and they played a chasing, wrestling, and tickling game in the trees. At dusk, Amber led them to a stream. She cupped her hands and plunged them into the cold running water. Tano and Binti watched her drink and then did the same. Night fell. Tano and Binti whimpered in fright as the trees began to cast dark shadows and the forest came alive with night sounds. Amber climbed a tall tree and folded a mass of lush green leaves into a large, cozy nest, and the young chimps snuggled close to Amber's side all night. The three chimps climbed down from their nest when the forest birds began their morning song of sunrise. Amber led the way to a tall mound in a clearing. Tano and Binti watched as Amber wiggled a long stem of grass into the hole in the mound. She pulled the stem out and ate 3 fat termites that were clinging to it. The young chimps were soon fishing for termites too. As the days passed, Amber showed Tano and Binti all kinds of edible fruit, seeds, bark, and berries. They learned which leaves were the juiciest and which grasses the sweetest. She taught them to use stones as hammers to break the hard shells of pods and nuts. The chimps learned to build their own nests for sleeping at night. Though Amber was always close by, the forest was no longer a strange place. The forest gave them everything they needed to live well. But one morning, Binti woke up to find Amber's nest is empty. Binti ran to her brother in distress. Amber was gone. The chimps clung tightly to each other. They were now on their own. The two chimps remembered every lesson Amber had taught them as they traveled alone during the next few weeks. They missed Amber, but they could take care of themselves. One day, more than a year after Tano and Binti had first arrived in the African forest, Amber came back. The two chimps shrieked with excitement when they saw her and ran to hug her. Amber hugged them back, as excited to see them as they were to see her. Suddenly, Tano and Binti noticed that clinging to Amber's tummy was a tiny baby. Amber gently placed the baby's fingers on Tano's arms, and he grinned. Binti panted softly into the baby's ears. So that's where she was. She was having a baby. A large male approached and looked affectionately at the new baby. He took notice of Tano and Binti. It was clear that he approved of everyone, including them and their band. Tano and Binti would no longer have to depend only on each other to find the best places to eat and sleep. The forest was now truly their home. What a nice story. Let's see what we have in our magic bag today. Ah, cool. Another thing you might find in a forest. A cricket. A cricket. C-R-I-C-K-E-T. Cricket. There you go. See you next time.